For lovers of freedom and sound money all across the world, we are getting some fantastic news out of China that the central bank is saying that usage for their central bank digital currency has been low. Now, many of you are familiar with the fact that China has been one of the pioneers, one of the leading countries in testing and trialing the use of a central bank digital currency. But it looks like that test has not been going according to plan. According to Mr. Ping, who is a former official at the People's Bank of China, the cumulative digital transactions have only crossed $14 billion after 2 years. That usage number is low. It is highly inactive. In addition to the total dollar amount of usage being low on this network, we are also seeing low adoption. Only 261 million users had set up an eCNY wallet. Now, 261 million users might seem like a lot considering the American population is like 300 million, but compared to the Chinese population, that is a drop in the bucket. At over 1.4 billion people in China, they need quite a few more than 260 million to make a difference. Now, this is not because Chinese people just don't like technology or don't like using mobile payment platforms. In fact, right now, 900 million people in China use mobile payment systems. These are their local payments systems like WeChat Pay, Alipay, and QQ Wallet. Now, for anyone who dislikes tyranny around the world, this is a huge win because you would expect of many countries in the world, China would be one of the prime examples that you would expect to have success with rolling out a CBDC. With their high respect towards the leadership, their trust in their 100-year plan, and their willingness to endure much more from their leadership than other countries like the United States. But clearly, this has not been the case with their CBDC, at least so far. And it's not just China. We saw something very similar unfolding recently in Nigeria that I covered in a recent YouTube video as well. Nigerians have been extremely slow to accept their government's CBDC as well. Adoption of their e-Naira is not going well, with only 0.5% of Nigeria's 217 million citizens using it. And again, this is not a case of people who just don't like digital technology or the idea of using digital payments. Nigeria is one of the most crypto-savvy populations in Africa. In fact, they are ranked number 11 in the world for Bitcoin adoption. So it looks very clear, at least right now, that populations around the world, regardless of culture, are saying no to central bank digital currencies. So the question is, what could possibly get a population to say yes to one? And this is where things get a little dicey. You see, if I were in control of a nation's money supply and my goal was to get people to accept the new digital currency, here's exactly what I would do. Number one, I would cause a lot of inflation. I would print a lot of money in response to some sort of health crisis or financial crisis. I'd print a lot of money to bail out the system. Now, one result of that is that prices are gonna go up for asset prices first. So you're gonna see bubbles form. You're gonna see a lot of that newly printed money leave the hands of the people who don't need it immediately, and it's gonna fund fraudulent ventures like, I don't know, electric semi-truck companies. A lot of it's gonna go into crypto schemes, Ponzi schemes. A lot of that money is gonna go into bubbles that people think they're getting rich, and ultimately it will all come crashing down, and people will lose most of that money that we printed. But I'm not gonna step in and save the system yet. They're just not ready for it. Because the next thing that's going to happen is all that money is gonna work its way through goods and services and start to bid up prices of goods and services. So we're gonna see inflation take hold. And in response to this inflation, I'm gonna have to take the responsible approach and say, I gotta fight inflation. So I'm gonna jack interest rates up and drive down demand to try and crush the American consumer so that inflation comes back down. And while I'm raising rates, I'm aware that I have the most over-leveraged economy, both from the government, corporations and households in history. Because for years, I've kept interest rates so low that people have been able to absorb this giant debt bubble. So now, while I'm raising rates, it's making it extremely painful to continue to pay that debt service cost to just roll over that debt. So I'm either going to have to default or I'm going to have to devote more and more of my income just to keeping my debt load the same. Now, as you might imagine, this spells a disaster. This is the ingredients for a large financial collapse, for the American household getting squeezed, not being able to pay my bills. My minimum payments on my credit cards just went so high that I can't even afford them anymore. My debt becomes so expensive, I can't afford to continue to make more income to pay off that debt. Not to mention that, but because everybody's income is going just to pay off their debt, there's less money going around the economy now, which means less revenue in companies' pockets, which means I can't get a raise. In fact, I might not even be able to keep my hours. So I'm getting a pay cut, a wage cut, or even losing my job. This is a classic debt cycle, the boom-bust cycle, whereby the lowering of interest rates and the expansion of money supply causes a boom that's unsustainable and eventually results in a crash. And at the point of most desperation, where most Americans are screaming for a bailout and saying, please, whatever it takes, we need you to rescue us because I can't afford to feed my family, to keep my house, to protect and provide for the people that I need to protect and provide for. Give me a handout, even if it comes with a handcuff. And this is where the central bank will introduce the central bank digital currency. They'll say, look, we want to save you, but we can't do it like we did last time. Last time we printed a bunch of money and we gave it to you and you purchased stocks that were meme stocks, that were fraudulent. You purchased NFTs, you purchased cryptocurrencies, you caused a lot of bubbles, and then you lost it all. Not to mention the fact that when you got that money, you also went out and you hoarded toilet paper, you drove up the price of gasoline, you bought up a bunch of stuff that you didn't need and caused supply and demand mismatches, shortages, supply chain issues. So we gave you this money to save you last time, but you screwed the system up. So if you want us to bail you out again, we'll do it, but we need more control of the money to save you from yourself. We need to control how that money is spent so that you can't go and cause a bubble, so that you can't go give it to a fraudulent investor, so that you can't go hoard gasoline or toilet paper. If we see prices going up too much in one direction, we can halt transactions going that direction. We can put in real time supply or rations on different items so that you can't go cause shortages. We need full tyrannical control of the money supply to save you from yourself. And at that point, Americans will be in such financial pain, they'll take the bait. So while I'm extremely grateful that in China, their central bank digital currency trial has not been going well, and that we're seeing the exact same thing happen in places like Nigeria, I'm not running victory laps yet because the people around the world are not yet in enough financial pain to truly test their resolve. And as a last piece of advice, the only thing that I would say here is make sure you have some wealth outside the banking system before this takes place, because if you wait until the only form of money you have is a CBDC, you will not be able to get it out by buying things like Bitcoin or gold at that point anymore. As always, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.